some narratives that I'm hearing are basically, I find that it's kind of goes to Trump incompetence, or that the war is actually for Israel, not the US, or they
Mhm.
try to invoke some headlines that are mysterious that kind of let people come up with their own ideas on how this outcome could be bad for the US. And so some examples I'll go through real quick are, there the war is taking longer than expected, but that's kind of like mind reading of Trump. Nobody actually knows how long Trump thought it would take. The war is tougher than expected to open up the Strait of Hormuz. And again, mind reading of Trump and trying to make him look incompetent. This is all for Israel. I mentioned that the US is destroying our alliances, is something I see a lot. And they actually say by not being able to protect entirely the Gulf states, that we're actually harming our reputation in securing them long term. And that, because of UAE and other countries like that rely on us for their tourism and for security for their tourism, and now that's getting destroyed. And so they blame us for that. And they also say by taking like away from like South Korea Patriot missile systems from South Korea and stuff, that like Asian countries are now getting upset with us. And then that a big one militaristically is that we can't commit regime change from the air and say, okay, if
Mm.
you're not going to put any boots on the ground, you're only going to bomb from the air, then how are you actually going to overthrow the regime? And so it takes advantage of how the military can't really say what their plans are outright, but obviously there are like the revolutionaries, Iranians, that can help do some of the boots on the ground at the end.
I mean, to the last point, the whole, I think I don't know why a lot of people are dismissing the Iranian people's part of this when they keep saying that they cannot do regime change from the ground. I mean, the plan from the very beginning of these military operations by United States and Israel is for the Iranian people to be the boots on the ground. It's supposed to be this is supposed to be basically unchaining the Iranian people, untying their hands, removing the obstacle from their way to be able to regime change. Like, I don't understand why so many people, when they say like, "Oh, you cannot do regime change from without boots on the ground," do not use measure that in their calculation.
Can I respond to that real quick? I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
it's
of course.
because, like, if you look at our conflicts, we have dominated militaristically, but a lot of people don't think we actually won them, like Afghanistan and like Vietnam and conflicts like that. And so, like, if you the what I would respond with in Afghanistan is like when they would pop out of the mountains, take some pot shots, go back in. They actually did. There was a regime change. Actually, it's the problem was that there was no real alternative government that was able to pop up and be stable. And so then the Taliban could take back over. So I think the difference in Iran is that you have a government that can come in and be stable, but they still, I think the normal average American is going to view it as like, hey, we're in the same type of war that Afghanistan, where the Taliban just came right back. So that's
Yeah,
what I
I
would
mean,
say.
the thing that the people are like not taking into account also when they are looking at Iraq and Afghanistan and comparing it to Iran is that the reason why you can't do nation building in Iraq and Afghanistan is because you don't have the right people with the right mindset in a large enough number to do nation building, and your goal was to do nation building for them, right? You can't do nation building for a people. You could remove the obstacle in their way for them to do nation building for themselves. And in Afghanistan and in Iraq, we didn't have that. In Iran, like, if you want to compare Iran to other nations, it's actually more resembling of Japan and Germany after World War II rather than Afghanistan and Iraq after the removal of Taliban and Saddam. We already have, the people who will be able to, once with just a little bit of a help to remove some obstacles from their way, you don't have to be there and build a nation for them because they will do the nation building themselves. It's just something that is stopping them right now, and all you're doing is removing them, and
I
everything else will be done by them.
I think it's a big mistake to try to counter the people who are against the conflict by saying, "Oh, but look how many people we're killing, and look how many leaders we're killing," because that's not going to convince them. Because they're going to say, "Of course we're winning militarily, but that's not going to end the war." And I think they need a vision for how it ends. Like just saying regime change, I don't think is enough. Like how is that regime change going to take place? And then I think Trump made a really big mistake and when he said the war is basically over, because that's kind of the Bush mistake, and it's basically every bad thing that happens now. It's like, oh, why'd that happen? The war is basically over. Why'd that happen? And I think Trump did that because he wanted to keep the oil prices down. But I think the political war is actually more important than the oil war. They're connected, but I think that was a little short-sighted by him. So that I think we're gonna have to deal with that the rest of the conflict now.
Yeah, I mean, I know that whenever whatever messaging comes from the White House is based on so many things that there's speaking behind the scenes that we are not aware of. So every time they come out with one messaging, it's really difficult for us to figure out what should be said at the right time because we're not hearing, we don't know exactly what information they have access to that we don't have access to. At the end of the day, we have to like the people who are going to use that as a way to attack President Trump, they were not on the side of supporting these military operations anyways. You know what I mean? Like you have to see, I know that they're doing like the people in the White House are doing a lot of trial and error regarding what resonates with people. Like anybody who comes and points out like, oh, but Trump said this and then he said that and these seem to be a contradiction, there are usually the people who will be affected by that are usually the people who are on the side of, well, President Trump, whatever he does is wrong anyways. Like we have to look at, and there are also, we also have the other side of people who like will support President Trump no matter what he does, and then we have people who begin against President Trump no matter what he does. There's this people in the middle that you have to, when it comes to buying enough political capital for this military to operation to continue, you have to basically do trial and error and see what resonates with these people in the middle. And usually the people who are not on the side of Trump is always bad or Trump is always good, they're not in none of these camps. Usually these people are more result oriented, and they're looking at a lot of them are also, if Americans especially, are looking at their lives and how it's affecting their lives. And again, it's really difficult for me and you to right now evaluate exactly how you could sell these military operations to them. This requires a lot of data, a lot of A/B testing, a lot of try. Like I don't know, like, and again, they're all not the same. So I actually made a mistake saying that these people are usually like this because there's different groups of people. There are also a lot of people who are younger who, if a military operation looks successful, they will support it just because it's cool to be on the winning side of things, right? There are there are some, so forget the people who are always anti-Trump and always for Trump. Everyone else in the middle, like based on what I'm saying, like if you're older, then you're just wondering how this is going to affect your cost of living and your income. If you're younger, my assumption is that if you're on the winning side, you like it. If you're on the losing side, you're not for it. There's two things that I've noticed that is true about Americans, okay, when it comes to their foreign policy. One is that they care about their pocket, like, and how this is going to affect their economy. But also, a lot of people got the wrong lesson from Iraq and Afghanistan. The lesson that many people got from Iraq and Afghanistan is that Americans don't want to be involved in wars. That's the wrong lesson. The lesson that they should have learned is that if you're going to do military operations, you better win, because Americans just don't want to be losers. That's what they don't want. It's not that they don't want to be involved in war, is that if you're involved in war, you better make sure that it's an absolute win. Okay. And if you're winning, then they like it. If you're losing, then they don't like it. So a lot of the messaging that is coming from the White House, if you see that they're like talking about winning, 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 is because of that understanding.
And then I also just want
Mm.
to say, like, remember that military experts and popularists have agendas, and what I find is that most of them, even though they have an expertise, they come up with their conclusion, and they tend to find ways to justify that because really our
Right.
agendas trump even our expertise in life, and what we want the government to do. So I'll just point that out too. So thank you, though.
Yeah. Yeah, this is why I have a huge respect for when I hear an expert saying like I assume this, but I and this ended up being true. I'm like, oh my god, who's this guy? Whenever I see an expert come out and say, I'm an expert and this was my analysis, and that was wrong. This is my new analysis now. I'm like, okay, this is a guy that I could probably trust more than other people because he's not when he has a position, he or she has a position, they're not going to try to find every single information to keep justifying the original position that they had. Every time I see somebody come out and say they were wrong about something, and based on the data that they have, this is the new position, I end up trusting that person a lot more. Yeah. By the
Jeffrey,
way,
you
if
wanted
there's
to
another
respond to
thing,
this?
yeah, go.
Oh,
Yeah, go on, Danny. Sorry, sorry.
I was just saying, Jeffrey put it too.
Oh yeah, go on, Jeffrey.
Yeah. To bounce off some of the things that Armin said, he's again pretty much right on the money. The main reason for the United States striking the Mullah regime at the time we did centers on eliminating the pressing threats posed by the Mullah regime, readying its solid fuel ballistic missiles that it expanded, increased both the quantity and quality of its ballistic missile force, said Operation Midnight Hammer, with assistance from the Chinese Communist Party and Putin's criminalized counterintelligence state against the against Israel and every other actor in the region. I mean, you could see that just by what they were doing, what they did after they were hit. And coterminous with that effort is the operational approach we're taking towards realizing the regime change that centers on weakening the Mullah regime to the point where the Iranian people can reclaim Iran from the Mullah regime that's illegally occupied Iran since 1979. And the main focus of that is targeted air campaigns that take out a lot of the regime's centers of gravity and or assets, so that puts the Iranian people on a much better playing field than just trying to protest against a regime that has untouched assets like headquarters and military and aircraft and rotary aircraft and on and on and on. So that's kind of like our effort. I mean, you're not wrong in the sense of the concern you have. Understand that everybody in the Defense Department, this administration, the United States, national command structure in general has learned both from Vietnam and some of the hiccups during the global war on terror, and that's not being repeated.